The truck was coming fast. She never saw the headlights, just a hard pull on her arm, and the next second she was on the ground, heart pounding, the truck roaring past, close enough to feel the wind of it. Just her own breathing, ragged. When she opened her eyes, the man holding her wasn't a security guard, wasn't a driver, wasn't anyone from her world of boardrooms and 8-figure contracts. It was him, the same man she saw every single day, sitting on the same corner outside her building, the one she always pretended not to see. She never imagined she'd owe her life to that man, and she definitely never imagined he was about to expose the biggest scandal her company had ever seen. That night, 2 completely different worlds were about to collide, one built on a legacy, the other wrecked by an addiction. Evelyn Hartwell was 31. For 3 months she'd been running Hartwell and Company, the firm her father built from nothing over almost 30 years. Charles Hartwell died of a heart attack on a Tuesday morning, alone in his office, coffee still warm on the desk. Evelyn didn't get time to grieve like a daughter should. The day after the funeral, she was already signing paperwork. Hartwells don't stop, her father used to say. We don't let anyone else make the call. She'd learned that lesson too early. Her mother died when Evelyn was 9. Cancer, slow and cruel. After that, it was just her and her dad. No siblings, no family close enough to lean on. He raised her in boardrooms and homework done in waiting rooms, taught her to read a balance sheet before she could ride a bike well. She never lacked for anything, except company. When her father died, the loneliness she'd learned to hide her whole life became impossible to hide anymore. No one to call at 3 a.m. The board wanted decisions. The staff wanted direction. And underneath all of it, she just had questions nobody could answer. But lying on that sidewalk, heart still slamming against her ribs, Evelyn didn't feel like a Hartwell. She felt small. You okay? His voice was rough, tired, but something about it didn't match the way he looked. Worn jacket, days of stubble, hands that had clearly seen hard weather. And then, his eyes, not the eyes of a man who'd given up. Yeah, she said, still shaking. Yeah, I'm fine. You saved me. He just nodded, looking away, like he didn't know what to do with a thank you. It was nothing. He helped her up, then stepped back immediately like he didn't belong that close. Wait, Evelyn said. At least tell me your name. He hesitated. Alex. And he turned and walked back to the same corner where he slept every night. In front of the building he now knew better than anyone. Evelyn didn't sleep that night, not from the shock of the truck. She couldn't stop asking herself, how many times had she walked past that man without really seeing him? The next morning, the boardroom had its own storm waiting. Evelyn, we get it, said Richard Voss, using that soft tone he wielded like a blade wrapped in velvet. But you've only been in this seat 3 months, and this quarter's numbers aren't what we hoped for. Richard had been her father's right hand for 15 years, the man Charles trusted more than anyone. The one Evelyn had called Uncle Richard since she was a kid. Numbers dropped because we lost my father, Richard, not because I don't know what I'm doing. No one's saying that, said board chair Martin Cole. But this board has a responsibility to investors, and there are names, more experienced ones, who could steady the ship while you find your footing. My father left this company to me, not the board. And the board respects that, Richard said. For now. That phrase hung in the room long after the meeting ended. For now. A warning dressed up as courtesy. That evening, Evelyn left the office later than usual. The streets were nearly empty, the October air sharper than it should have been for someone walking home alone. He was there again, same corner, a thin blanket over his shoulders. She stopped. She wasn't sure why. Guilt, maybe, or something deeper she didn't have a name for yet. She sat a coffee down beside him, along with a sandwich from the deli on the corner. Alex looked up, surprised. You didn't have to do this. You saved my life. This is the least I could do. He wrapped his hands around the cup like he was warming more than just his fingers. What's your name? He asked, a little shy. Evelyn. Evelyn Hartwell, he said quietly. She blinked. How do you know my last name? He went quiet for a second too long. Everyone on this street knows the company name, he said, dodging. That sign on the building lights up every night. She let it go. But something about the answer didn't quite sit right. That was the first of many nights. At first, Evelyn only stayed a few minutes. A coffee, a few words. Then the minutes turned into half hours, and the half hours turned into a habit. She learned that Alex, despite everything, talked with a clarity that didn't match the picture people had in their heads when they saw a man on the street. One night, without meaning to, she mentioned a set of numbers that hadn't added up for weeks. If operating revenue went up but net margin dropped 3 points, with no extraordinary expenses reported, someone's inflating costs somewhere, Alex said, almost without thinking, watching steam rise off his coffee. Evelyn stared at him. How do you know that? He realized, a beat too late, what he'd just given away. I was an accountant a while back. Silence. What happened? She asked carefully. I lost everything, with my own 2 hands. He didn't say anything else that night, and for the first time in a long time, Evelyn felt like she wasn't the only one carrying something too heavy to explain easily. The nights kept happening, quiet, almost secret, neither of them naming what it was. Evelyn started bringing food along with the coffee. At first, Alex pushed back. You don't need to feel sorry for me, Evelyn. It's not pity, she said, sitting beside him on the cold concrete. It's company. Honestly, I need it as much as you do. They talked about small things, the music he used to love, the books she read as a kid, a dog he'd had once and still missed. And somewhere in those small conversations, Evelyn realized something that surprised her. She hadn't talked this freely with anyone in years. Not with the board, who only saw a last name and a job title. Not with the handful of friends who didn't know how to act around her anymore. With Alex, for reasons she couldn't fully explain, she could just be herself. One night, walking home late, she passed a bar with a neon sign that never turned off, one of those 24-hour places downtown with a back room everyone knew about. Without thinking, she looked back to see if Alex had walked her the last few blocks, like he sometimes did. He wasn't there. And for a second, a worry caught her off guard. What if, in some lonely moment, he slipped back into the exact thing that cost him everything? She didn't say anything. She didn't feel like she had the right to ask yet, but the question followed her for days. At the office, the pressure kept climbing. Richard insisted on personally reviewing every major vendor contract, claiming Evelyn needed to learn the full process. His tone stayed friendly, but she noticed he was cutting her out of decisions more and more, not bringing her in. One afternoon, going through documents Richard had handed her, a number caught her eye. It didn't match what she remembered from before her father died. She didn't say anything yet. She made a copy. That evening, she brought it straight to Alex. Could you take a look at this? I know it's a lot to ask. His hands shook a little as he took the papers. It's been a long time since I've looked at a balance sheet, Evelyn. I trust you. Those 3 words landed heavier than she expected. He took the documents, and for the first time in years, felt something close to purpose. He spent the whole night going through them under a streetlight, with a pencil Evelyn had given him, and a battered notebook he found in a trash can nearby. The next morning, Evelyn found him waiting, eyes tired, but lit up. There are numbers that don't add up, Evelyn. Duplicate invoices. Payments to a vendor that, according to this, doesn't exist. And it's all authorized under the same signature. Whose signature? He looked her dead in the eye. Richard Voss. The ground seemed to tilt under her. That's impossible. Richard is my father's right hand. Maybe that's exactly why no one ever checked. She was quiet, processing. I need real proof before I accuse him of anything like this. I know, Alex said, and I can help you find it, if you want me to. Evelyn looked at him, and for the first time, she didn't see a homeless man. She saw someone who, despite losing everything, still had something to give. Come to the office, she said. I need you to see the full files. Alex went pale. No, Evelyn, I can't. Why not? It took him a moment to answer. When he did, his voice sounded smaller. Because that office, that world, that's exactly what I lost. And I don't know if I'm ready to stand in front of people like that again. Those looks. Evelyn understood, even if not completely, that there was a wound there deeper than words could explain. Nobody's going to judge you. You don't know that. 2 days later, Alex showed up outside the building anyway. Showered, wearing borrowed clothes Evelyn had gotten him, body wound tight as a wire about to snap. Walking through that door cost him more than any exam he'd ever taken. Inside, employees glanced at him sideways, some with pity, some with open suspicion. One of his old colleagues, now working in Hartwell's accounting department, recognized him instantly. Alex Reed? He said, stunned. Is that you? Shame crawled up Alex's neck like fire. Hey, Andy. I thought... Andy didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Alex looked down, and for a second, Evelyn thought he'd turn around and walk out. He didn't. He stayed. Hours later, leaving the building, chest still tight, Alex felt like that run-in with Andy had cracked open a door he'd kept shut for 3 years. He walked for blocks with no destination, trying to sort out what he was feeling. And then, without meaning to, He ended up standing outside a bar with a betting lounge in the back. The lights, the music leaking through the half-open door, the familiar sound of machines, all of it spoke straight to a part of him he thought he'd put to sleep. He stood there frozen for several minutes. A voice in his head, the same one that had talked him into it so many times before, whispered that he just needed a minute to breathe, that no one had to know, just this once. He reached into his pocket. The few bills Evelyn had given him for expenses were still there, folded. He took a step toward the door, then stopped. He closed his eyes and saw his mother's face, holding him without a single accusation. His father's voice, shaking, telling him, "You can get money back, you can't get a son back." He stepped back, then another step. And he walked, almost running in the opposite direction, until he reached the corner where he used to sleep, breathless, heart pounding for a completely different reason than it had the night of the truck. The next day, he told Evelyn everything, not to prove he'd resisted, but because he understood that hiding it was exactly the first step that used to lead him right back. "I almost walked in, Evelyn." She listened without interrupting. "But you didn't." "No, but I was scared of myself." "I still am." "That fear isn't weakness, Alex, it's what's keeping you on this side of the door." That conversation pushed him to find a support group for gambling addiction, the first time in years. It wasn't easy walking in, but he left that meeting feeling, for the first time in a long time, less alone with it. That afternoon, locked in Evelyn's private office, they went through 3 years of financial records together, folder by folder. Alex found the pattern: a shell company registered under the name of a distant relative of Richard's, billing for services that never existed. Millions of dollars siphoned off slowly, for years, right under Charles Hartwell's trusting eye. "Your father trusted him like a brother," Alex said carefully. "That's exactly why he never suspected." Evelyn felt a mix of anger and grief she didn't have a word for. "I need solid proof. I can't walk into the board with suspicions." "Then let's get it." From that point on, Evelyn and Alex were inseparable, careful not to raise more suspicion than necessary. But in a company like this, rumors move faster than the truth. "Did you hear?" one assistant whispered in the hallway. "She's got some homeless guy in her office all day. I heard she let him in without a security badge. You can tell something's been off with her since her dad died." Richard heard the whispers fast, and instead of ignoring them, he fed them. At the next board meeting, with a worried voice and a compassionate look, he took the floor. "This isn't easy to say, but as someone who loved Charles like a brother, I'm deeply worried about Evelyn. The grief, the pressure of running this company, it's affecting her more than she's letting on." "What are you talking about, Richard?" Martin Cole asked. "She's been letting a homeless man into her private office, giving him access to confidential information. The staff is concerned, so am I." A murmur ran through the room. Evelyn, walking in just in time, caught the last words. "That's a lie, Richard." "No one's lying, Evelyn. We're just worried about you and about the company. What you're doing is looking for an excuse to push me out." "No one said that," Martin cut in carefully. "But Evelyn, if it's true you gave a stranger access to sensitive information without board approval, that's a serious problem, regardless of your reasons." Evelyn felt the trap closing around her. Explaining the full truth, that this stranger was the one who uncovered the fraud, meant exposing the evidence before it was fully locked down. That would give Richard time to erase everything. "Give me a week," she said finally. "1 week to show you exactly what I'm doing." The silence stretched. 1 week, Martin agreed, reluctant. "But if there's nothing solid by then, the board takes action." The rumors didn't stay in the boardroom. In the elevator the next day, 2 HR employees talked without realizing Evelyn was right behind them. "I heard she gave him a key to one of the private offices," one said. "A guy she barely even knows. I heard she might be into him. You know how she's been since her dad died." Evelyn said nothing. She stepped off the elevator, eyes forward, swallowing the humiliation like she had so many times before. That afternoon, her old college friend Rachel called, worried. "Evelyn, I've been getting weird messages about you, that you're caught up in something with a homeless guy. Tell me that's not true." "It's not what they're saying, Rachel." "Then what is it? Because even my mom asked if you were losing it." That line, said carelessly, hurt more than Evelyn expected. "I'm not losing it, Rachel. I'm doing the right thing, even if nobody else understands that yet." She hung up with a knot in her throat. For the first time since this all started, she let herself doubt, just for a second, whether she was doing the right thing, or whether grief and loneliness had pushed her into decisions she couldn't fully explain, even to herself. That night, Evelyn didn't come find Alex with her usual energy. She showed up exhausted, and for the first time since they'd met, crying. "They're cornering me, Alex. I don't know if I can hold this together." He didn't know what to say at first. He just sat beside her, quiet, letting her cry without judgment. "Your dad didn't leave you this company because you needed to prove something to anyone," he said finally. "He left it to you because he trusted you. What if I'm not enough? Evelyn, I used to be exactly what people would call enough. The job, the respect, all of it. And I lost everything in one night, betting money that wasn't even mine. Not because I lacked ability, because I let fear and desperation make the call instead of me." She looked at him, eyes still wet. "What happened exactly?" she asked. He took a breath. First time he'd told the whole thing out loud. "I started small," he said. "A bet here, a bet there. Told myself I had it under control." "But you didn't," she said gently. "No," he admitted. "It eats at you, slowly, until you don't even recognize your own decisions anymore." She waited, letting him find the words. "I lost my savings first," he went on. "Then I started borrowing." "From who?" she asked. "Anyone who'd give it to me," he said. "And when nobody would anymore." He stopped, his jaw tight. "Alex," she said softly. "I asked my parents," he said, his voice cracking. "Told them it was to get back on my feet. They believed me, gave me their retirement fund. 40 years running a little tailor shop, everything they'd saved so they could finally rest." "And?" Evelyn asked, already dreading the answer. "Gone," he said. "One night, all of it." Evelyn didn't say anything. There wasn't anything to say. "I never went back after that," he continued. "Couldn't. Lost the job right after. Started messing up, showing up late. Stopped answering my friends' calls, ended up on the street." "Because no one would help you?" she asked. "Because I couldn't look them in the eye after what I did," he said. They sat with that a moment, the city humming in the distance. "I've never really talked about my mom either," Evelyn said quietly. "She died when I was 9. "What happened?" Alex asked. "Cancer," she said. 2 years of watching her fade. Then one day she couldn't get up anymore, and then she was gone. Your dad never learned how to talk about it, so neither did I. We just worked, like staying busy was a way of not feeling anything. And now?" Alex asked gently. "Now that he's gone too, I don't know how to stop being busy without feeling like I'll sink." "Maybe it's not about not feeling it," Alex said. "Maybe it's about having someone close when it hits." Evelyn looked at him, and for the first time didn't feel the need to hide how tired she was. She let herself for a moment just be sad. No fixing anything, no leading anything, no being the strong Hartwell everyone expected, and Alex just stayed there, holding that silence with her. After a long while she looked up. "Alex, you need to go see your parents." "I can't." "You can't keep carrying this alone. I can't keep carrying mine alone either. Let's go together." It took Alex a few days to agree, but finally, one Sunday morning, they got on a train out of the city, headed to the small town where his parents lived. He barely spoke the whole ride, just stared out the window, hands clasped, like someone bracing for a hit he knew he deserved. When they reached the small blue house with geraniums by the door, Alex stood frozen on the porch for almost a full minute, unable to knock. Evelyn knocked for him. The door opened, and a grey-haired woman in a flour-dusted apron froze at the sight of who was standing there. "Alex?" "Hey, Mom." Carol's hands flew to her mouth. She didn't say a word about the money, didn't ask where he'd been, didn't bring up the years of silence. She just hugged him, hard enough to hold 3 years of missing him. Walter, his father, came up behind her and froze when he saw his son, visibly fighting back tears. "We thought," he started, and couldn't finish. "I'm sorry," Alex said, voice breaking. "I'm sorry for everything you lost because of me. For the years I wasn't here, for—" "Enough," his mother cut in, holding him tighter. "Enough, honey. What's lost is lost. What matters is you're here." "But your retirement, Mom. Your money." Money comes back, Alex," Walter said, a shaking hand on his son's shoulder. "A son doesn't." That afternoon, sitting in the small backyard eating soup Carol had made, like she'd been waiting years for this exact moment, Alex understood something shame had never let him see before. The money was never the thing that hurt them most. What hurt was not having him close. When it got dark and it was time to head back, Carol took Evelyn's hands. "Thank you for bringing him back. He saved my life first," Evelyn said, smiling softly. "I'm just returning the favor." On the train home, Alex seemed different, lighter, like something he'd been carrying for years had finally found somewhere to rest. "Thank you, Evelyn. You don't need to thank me." "Yeah, I do. Nobody ever helped me face what I did head on. Everyone, including me, preferred I stayed hidden." Evelyn looked at him. I don't want you hidden, Alex. He didn't answer with words. He just looked at her differently than he ever had before. And for the first time, neither of them looked away. But that calm had an expiration date, and they both knew it. The board meeting that would decide everything was just days away, and the quiet of that backyard wasn't the world they had to return to. The next few days were a race against the clock. With Alex's help, Evelyn gathered solid proof, forged contracts, wire transfers to the shell company, emails Richard had tried to delete, but that were still backed up on the company servers. 2 days before the board meeting, Richard showed up unannounced in Evelyn's office. "I know what you two are doing," he said, calm in a way that was more frightening than shouting. "And I want you to know I can make this very hard for you, or we could work something out. I'm not negotiating with a thief, Richard." He smiled, no warmth in it. "Your father trusted me more than he ever trusted you. We built this company together. You've been playing CEO for 3 months. This company has my father's name on it, not yours. We'll settle that in front of the board then." "Perfect. See you there." When Richard left, Evelyn noticed her hands were shaking. Not from fear, from resolve. 2 days earlier, Richard had tried another angle. He caught Alex outside the building one evening, walking alone toward the train. "Alex Reed," he said, a smile that never reached his eyes. "I was curious to meet the man my former assistant picked up off the street. I don't work for Evelyn. I'm helping her." "Ah, helping. How generous." Richard stepped closer, lowering his voice. "I know who you are, Alex. I know what you did to your parents. I know how you ended up sleeping on that corner. You're not exactly who a board of directors would trust with sensitive financial information. Maybe not, but I'm exactly the kind of person who knows how to spot fraud, because I know what desperation looks like when it's hiding behind numbers." Richard's eyes narrowed. "I could make this very simple for you. A quiet payment. You decide this isn't your problem. Start fresh somewhere else, far from here, where nobody knows your past." For a second, Alex felt the old pull of an easy way out. "Why'd you do it?" he asked instead of answering the offer. "You didn't need the money. Anyone can see you've done well for yourself all these years." For the first time, something in Richard's expression cracked. 15 years, Alex. 15 years what? 15 years building this company next to Charles. Same calls, same risks. And when it came time to actually divide up what we built together, nothing. Not once did he offer me a partnership. So, you were just the trusted guy. Never part of anything. Even though I put in just as much as he did. That doesn't give you the right to steal from his daughter. She inherited in 3 months what I got denied for 15 years. Richard's voice softened, just for a second, more human than threatening. "I was collecting what I was owed." "No," Alex said. "You were collecting your resentment. That's not the same thing." Richard didn't answer that. "Keep your money," Alex said finally. "I already lost everything to easy money once, not doing it again, and I'm sure not helping you rob the one person who trusted me when nobody else would." Richard studied him, measuring the steel in his voice. "You're going to regret this." "Maybe, but at least I'll be able to look in the mirror." Alex didn't tell Evelyn right away. Took him 2 days to work up the nerve, worried she'd think he'd put everything at risk by talking to Richard alone. When he finally told her, she felt a mix of fear and something like pride. "He could have offered you enough money to set your whole life right, Alex, and you turned it down. Easy money already cost me everything once. Wasn't going to let it cost me this too." The night before the board meeting, going through the last of the documents, Alex went quiet, watching her. "What?" she asked. "Nothing. It's just, I never thought I'd feel useful like this again, after everything I lost." "You didn't lose everything, Alex. You've still got this." She tapped his temple. "And this." She touched his chest. He smiled, a little shy. "When this is over, Evelyn, I don't know what I'm going to do. I can't go back to the street, but I don't know if I have any right to ask for more either." "Why not?" "Because I don't trust myself yet." She took his hand. "I trust you." The day of the meeting arrived. The boardroom was full. The directors, Richard in his sharp suit and practiced smile, and Evelyn with Alex sitting quietly in the back, wearing a suit she'd helped him find, freshly shaved, a look in his eyes that no longer belonged to a man hiding from the world. That morning before leaving, Alex had stood in front of the mirror a long time, looking at a man he barely recognized. Trimmed beard, suit that fit right, eyes tired, but awake again. And in that quiet, staring at his own reflection, he understood something 3 years of shame had never let him see. Mistakes don't disappear, but they don't have to define you forever either. You can fall, lose everything, and still find your way back. Before we get to today's agenda, Evelyn said, standing, voice steady, I need to bring something urgent to this board. Evelyn, this isn't on the agenda, Richard cut in. I know. But once you hear what I have to show you, you'll understand why it couldn't wait. One by one, she laid out the documents, the shell company, the duplicate invoices, the wire transfers, the emails. The room got quieter with every page. This is fabricated, Richard said, though his voice had lost some of its earlier confidence. Anyone could have put this together. That's why I brought someone who can walk you through exactly how each of these transactions was traced, Evelyn said, turning toward the back of the room. Alex, would you? Alex stood. For a second, he felt the weight of every eye in the room on him. The same kind of looks that had made him feel invisible for 3 years on the street. This time, he didn't look down. With a clarity that caught the whole room off guard, he walked them through it, number by number, date by date. How Richard Voss had diverted over $3 million across 4 years through a fake billing network registered to a distant cousin. And for anyone wondering who I am to be standing here explaining this, Alex said, looking straight at Richard, I was a licensed CPA for 15 years. I made huge mistakes in my personal life, mistakes that cost me everything I had. But the numbers never stopped making sense to me. Richard, pale, tried to fight back. Evelyn, think about what you're doing. I was there when your father founded this company, through every crisis, every hard call. And you're going to throw away 15 years over some stranger you met on the street? He's not a stranger, and this isn't about us. This is about you robbing my father while he trusted you like a brother, then trying to rob me too right after I buried him. 15 years. Richard's voice changed, less calculated now, more raw. 15 years helping build this. And your father never once offered me a partnership. Not once. I was always just the trusted guy. You Hartwells were born owning things. I had to settle for managing what would never be mine. Silence. Martin Cole shifted in his seat. He does have a point, Martin said carefully. This board knows what he's contributed before we... What he contributed, Evelyn cut in, doesn't buy him the right to steal. Maybe my father should have recognized him better. That hurts me too. But it doesn't justify $3 million, Martin. That's not resentment, that's a crime. It was owed to me, Richard snapped, the calm finally gone. No, Evelyn didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. You did this for yourself. You hid behind my father's name and then mine. If you wanted to be recognized, you should have asked, not stolen. This ends today. The room went quiet. Martin nodded, already convinced. Richard, he said, the board needs you to step down. Effective now. Richard looked at Evelyn, rage and defeat tangled together. Your father never would have let this happen. My father trusted you for 15 years. You paid him back by robbing his company. So don't you dare tell me what he would have done. Security walked Richard out in silence, while the rest of the board watched, a mix of shock and something like respect, at the woman they'd nearly written off just months earlier. Evelyn, Martin said once the meeting ended, I owe you an apology. We doubted you for no reason. I understand why you did, but going forward, I need you to trust my judgment, even when that judgment includes helping someone the world decided to stop seeing. That afternoon, outside the building, Evelyn and Alex walked together in silence, enjoying for the first time in weeks the feeling of having nothing urgent left to solve. I want to offer you something, Evelyn said, stopping. What's that? I want you to be my chief financial advisor, officially. Salary, contract, everything you're owed. Alex went quiet, and Evelyn could see the old shadow of fear creeping back into his face. Evelyn, I can't take this out of pity. It's not pity, Alex, it's recognition. You solved what nobody else in this company could. And if I fail again? If the pressure comes back one day and I... His voice broke. What if I turn back into the person who broke his parents' hearts? Evelyn stepped closer, took his face in her hands. Alex, everyone carries the fear of falling again. I'm scared I won't live up to what my dad built, but we're not letting that fear make the call for us. Not anymore. Do you trust me? He asked, voice shaking. After everything I told you, do you actually trust me? I trust you, Alex. Not the man you were before you lost everything. I trust the man who sat next to me with nothing and still chose to help me without asking for anything back. Something deep inside Alex finally loosened after years of holding tight. Okay, he said, a small, shaky smile. I'm in. Evelyn smiled, and without overthinking it, leaned in and kissed him. Slow, unhurried. Like they'd both been waiting for this since that first cup of coffee on a cold sidewalk. The months that followed changed them both. Alex started rebuilding, piece by piece. He got professional help for the gambling, understanding that willpower alone was never enough without support, and that needing help wasn't something to be ashamed of. He visited his parents every Sunday without fail. He rebuilt the friendships he'd broken one at a time. Some responded with joy, others needed more time. He learned to respect that too. Evelyn ran Hartwell and Company with a different kind of confidence. She wasn't carrying the weight of proving herself to anyone anymore. She led in her father's memory, while quietly building something that was fully hers. 6 months after that board meeting, the formal investigation confirmed every one of Alex's findings. Richard faced charges for fraud and breach of fiduciary duty, and the shell company he'd used for years to bleed the business dry was shut down for good. Hartwell and Company recovered most of the stolen funds, and with Alex's help, Evelyn put new internal controls in place that made it nearly impossible for anything like it to happen again without being caught fast. Andy, the old colleague who'd recognized Alex that first day, became one of his closest allies in finance. One day, laughing, he admitted he'd always suspected something was off with those numbers. He just never had the nerve to dig into it alone. "You had it, though," he told Alex, "even after it cost you everything." Over time, Alex stopped seeing those 3 years on the street as a permanent mark of shame. He started seeing them as the reason he now understood, better than anyone in that building, what it meant to lose everything and find a way back. Every Sunday, without fail, he took the train out to his parents' place, sometimes alone, sometimes with Evelyn. Carol had even started teaching Evelyn a few of her recipes, insisting, laughing, that no daughter of hers should reach 32 without knowing how to make a proper pot roast. Almost a year after the night of the truck, Alex was waiting outside the building with 2 coffees, on the same corner where it had all started. "You know," Evelyn said, taking her cup, "for months I walked past this corner and never even looked at you." "I know. And now I can't imagine a single day without seeing you here." He smiled and pulled her into a hug, right there, in front of the building where he'd once slept cold and out of hope, and where he now walked in every morning with his head up. "Thank you for not walking past that night, Evelyn. Thank you for stopping me before it was too late, in more ways than one." When he pulled back, he reached into his jacket pocket and took out a worn little notebook, the same one he'd found in a trash can the night he first reviewed the company's records. "I kept it this whole time," he said, handing it to her. "Every number, every doubt, every suspicion, from the first night you asked for my help. I want you to have it, as a reminder that sometimes the help that changes an entire life comes from exactly where you least expect it." Evelyn held it like it was worth more than any contract she'd ever signed. "I'm keeping this forever." The afternoon sun fell over the city, and for the first time in a long while, neither of them felt any need to rush toward anything else. They'd found in each other something no company, no money, and no title could ever offer, a place where they could finally stop pretending to be okay and just be. And as they walked away from the building together, neither of them looked back, because for the first time in a long time, they both knew exactly where they wanted to go. The end. If this story moved you, let us know. Rate it 0 to 10 in the comments. It means the world to us as we keep bringing you stories like this one.